Thank you. Thank you.
Throw that on the floor, but thank you very much for the introduction, Lucy. And yes, anyone who's been to booth 25 over the last day and a half would have seen us flashing around our gold bars, silver bars, I apologise. We gave away one last night, another one soon, and then 2 tonight. So if you haven't already thrown your hat in the ring or your business card in, please come and see us at booth 25. But, I'd just like to say, and others have as well, but congratulations to Kerry for her perseverance and being able to get the conference together. And it's great for me to be able to come and talk about Investigator because I actually haven't done a face-to-face conference in over 2 years. And in that time, we raised $8 million in the middle of 2020. We've completed a significant drill program in South Australia. We've completed the PFS on our Paris Silver project. So to be face-to-face and being able to trot around some silver bars is actually great. So thank you very much, Kerry. And the other one is she's allowed us to sneak in because we're a little unique. We're the only silver story here in a gold conference. So one of the things... Well, there you go. I'll finish on that note. And I'll work these out in a minute, but if you listened to Shay Russell yesterday and she walked some people around the booths and she was saying one of the things you need to be looking for is a point of difference between the run-of-the-mill opportunities and what is it that you can invest in and what's the significant point of difference. So one is we're the only silver one here. So if you want to be investing in silver, you should be thinking about Investigator. But the other one is we're actually the highest grade silver project in Australia. So if you're looking at investing in silver, as I said, you want to also chase the grade because grade's king wherever you go. So to start out with, I'm actually going to talk a little bit about silver before I talk about the company because, as I said, in this environment, it's a little bit unique. A few facts about silver. It has both precious metals and industrial uses, and it's really the industrial uses that are starting to drive the silver demand. And I'll talk about the supply-demand metrics, but it's the most conductive metal, and that's both thermally conductive and also electrically conductive. So it beats gold, and a 1 ounce, and this is about 15 ounces of silver, but 1 ounce of silver you can draw out to a wire 1.5 kilometres long. It's used in a lot of electronics, and in fact it's even starting now to be used as an indium replacement in the touchscreens of phones. So lots of uses, and you can see 23 million ounces have been picked up for use in the 5G networks, which has only been in the last year or so. Antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal uses, even goes back to having been born with a silver spoon in your mouth, where people acknowledge that antibacterial quality could prevent the plague. They use silver dollars in water barrels at times to purify the water. But importantly, in the growing use of silver is solar panels contain about 1 ounce of silver in every solar panel, and unfortunately it's not particularly recyclable once it's been in a solar panel. Solar capacity is expected to triple by 2030. Every electric vehicle is going to have a couple of ounces of silver. So lots of people are talking about nickel, lithium and the other battery metals, but all of those have got to have some silver use as well. So electric vehicle sales are forecast to grow by over 400 million units per annum by 2040. So that's about an 800 million ounce consumption of silver. Only 900 million ounces of silver get produced a year. So there's going to be a supply-demand break here at some stage. And certainly I always say if you're talking about the decarbonisation and electrification, it needs silver. So the future of silver is green is in fact silver. So that's on the demand side. And historical demand in jewellery, for example, which is about 200 million ounces, is going to stay about stable. I've talked about electrical and electronics growing, but even the photovoltaic, which only accounts for about 70 million ounces per annum, is going to really start to drive the supply side of it. Interestingly, photography still uses some silver. A lot of it's used in X-ray film, and in fact some of this silver has come from recycled X-ray film from the Siltec refinery in Melbourne. On the supply side, as at about 900 million ounces produced annually, 75% of the production of silver comes as a byproduct, particularly lead, zinc and gold production. one of the guys was talking yesterday about their gold bars actually being about 80% silver. It doesn't look much when they pour them. So you quite often get silver associated with the others. So with 75% of it coming as byproduct, there's not people who are going to bring on new lead mines to produce silver to feed into the electrification and revolution. Largest producers, China, Australia, South 32's Cannington project in Queensland is the largest Australian silver producer. It's a byproduct of the lead stream. Russia, Peru, Mexico, Chile. You heard Jake before mention the issue of some of the turmoil in the world associated with supply out of particularly China and Russia. You can see they're large contributors to the annual production, and if that starts to falter, obviously the supply-demand graph gets larger as well. Over the last decade, the primary silver producers, and that's what we expect to be or intend to be, out of South America, their head grades halved. They're very narrow, typically narrow vein mines, and over the last 10 years, their head grade's gone from 450 down to somewhere over about 200, 210. And similarly, output from those primary silver mines has fallen by 12%. I should have put this up earlier, but now I'll get on to what I need to talk about, which is what do you need to know about Investigator. ASX listed, we're a South Australian, we have a small tenement in Tasmania, but all of our activity is in South Australia. It's a Tier 1 jurisdiction. We have great relationships, not only with the regulator, but also with the traditional owners in the territory, or the country that we work. We're a well-known project in South Australia. We've the Paris Silver project I'll talk about was discovered in 2011. In fact, one of the guys I've got here with me, exploration manager Jason Murray, has been on the project for 10 years. He and the project geologist have worked basically for the last decade on Paris, so we know the project well, no surprises, and that also works in our favour when we're working through the regulatory process as well. The Paris Silver project, which is our primary asset, we have a number of other things I'll talk about, but the Paris Silver project is a 100% owned project. We've completed the PFS on it, 53 million ounces of silver in the ground with 98,000 tonnes of lead. That's about $1.8 billion of metal value in the ground as we speak. That resource was recast in 2021, it fed into our PFS, and in November 2021 we released the PFS results. And we're moving on at the moment to undertake the work to do the definitive feasibility study. But importantly for us, we've also continuing to explore, and certainly within 5 kilometres of the Paris Silver project, we've got opportunity to add resource and add mine life. About 80 kilometres to the east, we've got a patch of ground we call Morgans. We've just finished drilling there, and I'll talk about that. We've got some other tenement areas that we've got under farm-out deals. They're clearly a very experienced and capable team. But the graph shows you an absolute leverage to the silver price. And if I get the, you can see the blue is our share price here, and the silver or the grey behind it is the silver price. And every time the silver price, our share price moves, apart from the last couple of days. But generally we're lockstep. So if you want to be investing in silver, you should be investing in Investigator. The Paris Silver project's about a 5-hour drive from Adelaide northwest. If you're heading towards Perth, you go through Port Augusta. Kimber's next, or about 60 kilometres north of Kimber. Easy accessibility. It's, and I'll show you a photo later on, it's out in very benign country. It's flat country, there's no watershed issues, there's no animals, there's nothing that's going to be an impediment to our development. The pre-feasibility study, as mentioned, we put out last year. And you can see the metrics here, really strong financial metrics, IRR of 54%, a capital of $130 million, which we expect we'll be able to achieve both through equity and debt financing, but potentially some streaming as well, because silver lends itself to some alternate financing methods. And an all-in sustaining cost, which is important, and Jake mentioned that before talking about gold, is what does it cost us compared to what we can sell it for? So the PFS all-in sustaining cost was $17.45. Today's silver price is $30.50, so we've got a $14 margin there already. Importantly though, the PFS we put together is only based on recovery of the silver. We haven't done any work on how do we bring revenue into the stream from the lead. And there's about $200 million worth of lead available, which will have already been mined, ground, and through the processing plant. We just need to work out how we recover that and add that lead concentrate into our revenue. The project and the mine is a relatively simple open cut. The ore body is relatively flat lying. The open cut we expect will mine in 4 stages, going from silver, brown, blue and finishing with the green. Relatively shallow, 100 metres deep. But one of the beauties of it, and you'll see if you come to our booth where we have some core samples, is that the ground is very soft in the ore body, and we expect that we can rip and dig that rather than having to drill and blast it, and there's a substantial cost saving. So it's only as we get deeper into the more less weathered and dolomite basement that we expect to drill and blast, and we think that'll only be about 25 to 30% of our resource. We've worked out contract mining will be, for us, as it's currently pitched, as a shorter mining life is the way to go, and we'll mine it very quickly, and we'll get some economies of scale of having big gear that runs faster. We're not resource constrained. We expect we'll be back drilling this year, and I'll go back one. We'll be drilling this saddle in here where we've got limited drilling. We expect to pick up some additional resource there. We've just finished 14 drill holes around the pit, unfortunately looking out, not looking in, and we had to do that to understand the nature of the wall rocks and how we would better assess the pit. And one of the things we will do in the actual operation is, instead of taking all of the waste to a waste dump up here somewhere, as we progressively mine these, we'll dump back into the pits and we'll have an additional saving doing that. Really straightforward 3-stage crushing, grinding, leaching, processing, what we call a Merrill Crowe silver recovery. We'll actually pour silver doré on site and we'll be shipping those bars off for refining. One thing that'll be the first in South Australia is we'll do dry stack tailings. We will filter the tailings, take them out and place them rather than pumping them out in a slop pile. One of the beauties of that for us is we recover a significant amount of water, and it is an arid environment. Water conservation is important to us. As we go through the DFS, we'll be looking at the lead recovery I mentioned too, but also regional exploration to try and extend the mine life. This picture tells 1,000 words. This is Paris from north to south, over 1 kilometre long, 800 metres wide and its widest, and you see how closely spaced. This was the program we drilled in 2021. We were down to 25 metre centres on those holes. Process going forward, the next steps, we've got metallurgical work, and unfortunately we're in this trough of what they call the Lassonde curve, where the value creation starts to drop off while we're going through these studies. There's not a lot of sexy news coming out of the project, but one of the things we do have is some other opportunities regionally, and we'll bring some of that news to the market. NTMA is a native title mining agreement. We need to negotiate with our traditional owners over the land, and as I said, we have a great relationship, and I don't expect any of these will be showstoppers for us. They'll just be hard work and take time to get through. If we really keep our foot on the gas, we could produce silver out of this in mid to late 2024. Close by, and to put it in perspective, the Paris is this pink spot here, and out to the north is about 5 kilometres to the boundary of that tenement. Our tenement here is about 40 kilometres long, and this year we drilled 7,000 or over 7,000 metres on these prospects looking for near Paris mineralisation. Thankfully, we ended up with an intersection up here at Apollo, which is the highest grade silver intersection we've ever drilled outside the Paris resource. So 7 metres at 700 grams was an absolute cracker, and so encouraged we've actually taken the diamond rig out there now, and we're putting a diamond, what we call a twin hole, in beside the RC hole to better understand the geological structure out there. But not only great grade, but when we took the rocks and showed them to the petrologist, and he does his little thing under the microscope, he was able to identify that it's exactly the same style of mineralisation as what we have at Paris 4 kilometres away. So really heartening that there's probably another one somewhere. We've just got to keep after it. We're awaiting, out of that 7,000 metre program, we're awaiting all of those assays apart from a couple that we knew were going to be good because we could see them, and they were the ones that gave us this 7 metres at 700. Other tenements in South Australia, we've got 8,500 square kilometres of South Australia. We've got a great address. Olympic Dam, or the Olympic Belt, is through here. Paris is set out 7 hours drive from Adelaide. We're focused particularly in the Paris Petalumbo tenement, if I can hold this still, and the Uno Morgans, which is around here. Uno Morgans is a similar structural setting. There's a thing called the Gawler Ranges Volcanics that runs across the top. We drilled 3,500 metres there this year. Again, we're still waiting. We should have those results out in June. but we think that's going to be a similar style of mineralisation. And part of the encouragement we understand is that because there's a project sits in between these two called Manini Dam, which is a lead-silver project that has a resource on it. So we're in the right address to find something else. A couple of the other things we are focusing on, we've just been able to get through a native title discussion to get onto our Kernamona ground, and we'll be drilling that this year. The big patch of ground in the middle here we've farmed out to DGO, so that's under an earn-in, so they'll spend money to earn into that ground. And similarly, Fowler Resources Osmond Resources have taken our Fowler ground out to the west. Quick summary, and there's a lot of points on this, but silver exposure, Paris is the highest grade, and I forgot to mention before, we talk about also when people say 53 million ounces, how does that relate to a gold project? If you use what the gold-silver ratio is, how many ounces of silver you'd have to buy an ounce of gold. At the moment, it's about 85. Historically, it's 65 or 70, and it's a bit higher at the moment. But a 53 million ounce is about an 800,000 ounce gold equivalent project. And the grade that we've got is about 1.8 grams gold equivalent. So if it was near Kalgoorlie, it would have been mined 20 years ago. So silver's a little bit quirky, and investors take a little bit of time to warm up to it. But as I said, if you want to be in it, this is the highest grade project in Australia. The PFS put together robust financials. We've talked about those. We're in a tier 1 jurisdiction. South Australia is a great place to work. There's recent mines been approved there. There's a can-do process. Regional exploration targets, we've got 10,000 metres of drilling still coming out of the lab in the next couple of months. The teams with significant industry experience, not only myself, I'm a mining engineer, I've built and operated projects before, but also the rest of our board and team. And we've got some news flow coming. We've got a fair pipeline of projects that are going to see us deliver news over the next 6 months, some of which will be, I think, pretty outstanding. And if you're thinking about silver, you should be thinking about Investigator. Thank you very much. And it's just before you go, and it is not often you get something for nothing, but if you have a look under your seat, there's a business card, and come and collect this from me later if you've got the business card. It's under your seat somewhere.
Okay, thank you so much, Andrew. And while you're looking under your seats, you might